Catus Maximus here. PT lighted flashlight. Pretty cool. Okay, thanks. Bye. No, just kidding on the shortness. Anyway, I probably paid a little too much for this. I think this thing was like $13, $14, a little less than 15 bucks. But I've always kind of liked lighted screwdrivers, and this PT one has both good and bad about it. At least the thing that is good about it is how bright it is. That's the big deal. If you're going to get a lighted flashlight, at least have something that's actually can illuminate. Another good thing is we can see it has 3 lights on it. So when you're working on stuff, you don't get any shadows. Well, no shadows when you work on it. See, I got a new battery in this DeWalt here. And we can see that, one, my focus is terrible here. We turn on the screwdriver, way brighter than the DeWalt. DeWalt's also like 6K, and the flashlight on the screwdriver is like 5000K. So I appreciate that as well. Anyway, I did have to modify a little bit. You'll notice this little undercut on the shank. That's how it came with a little bit set. And this bit set actually attaches to the end of the screwdriver. How did it attach? They had this E-clip that was actually one of the stiffest E-clips I've ever found. It's definitely never falling off because they actually cut the slot a little undersized. So not only is it an E-clip, it kind of gets press fit into the slot. You can see it doesn't actually fit. I really had to yank and rip on this thing just to get it off the screwdriver. Having that E-clip on there did create kind of an odd shadow, so that's why I removed it. And the other thing that's kind of weird, and I think they should get rid of this feature so it's a little bit cheaper, is you'll notice this bit set. Well, one thing they shouldn't get rid of is the fact that, surprisingly enough, this bit set is chrome vanadium, so it's actually halfway decent bits. But you'll say, what on earth is this in here? One, they have 4mm bits, and they're basically impossible to remove without having some other bit or pair of pliers, so that's a downside. The other downside, which is interesting, is inside here, you can almost see it. It's double broach. So they do have a ball detent instead of a magnet to hold the 1/4-inch bits. At least it's a pretty stiff ball detent. It will hold long bits. And then it has a 4mm that is magnetically retained. So it's a double broached, which is definitely more expensive. But then you can't pull these little bits out. Once they're in there, there's not enough to grip onto. Ooh, I just got lucky getting that bit out. So basically, the bits are impossible to get out of the case here, and they're impossible to get out of the screwdriver. So why they did that, they should have just totally skipped on having this drive 4mm bits. You're not going to use this to fix, this is way too huge to fix an iPhone or something. You wouldn't be using it for that, so they should just totally eliminate that feature and eliminate the little E-clip and undercut and just sell it with a normal bit set. This whole contraption and extra bits just adds unnecessarily to the expense, and really people will want just a 1/4-inch lighted screwdriver. Some other takeaways about this, I mean, we'll go to a good thing, which is it is a nice proper trilobular design. I really like trilobular designs because they make it easy to grip. You can really get your thumb on there, get just a nice action. It's 120 degrees per side, which is just about right for when you're actually screwdriving something. Definitely pretty good. But it still is kind of, and once again, the light is just surprisingly bright. Really, if you're going to have one of these, at least put good lights in it, and they did. They could have sealed it so it had water resistance. There is no water resistance. And then the button is just this little button right here. And that's the biggest disappointment, is you put this in a toolbox, half the time you pull it out, it's going to be dead. They should at least use a switch. Maybe put the button right up here up front where it'd be less likely to get hit, or a tail cap switch, something. But this little button right here, not only is it going to get accidentally hit when you're when it's in your toolbox, but when you're moving it around, you may be screw driving it, trying to get out a screw and inadvertently turning it on and off. It does use 3 AAAs, so at least, you know, it ought to have a decent life with one of these cartridge systems. The thing that I was noticing is that this flange of plastic is actually pretty thin here and not very tall. And that's worrisome for the survivability of a drop test. Because especially in cold weather, plastic will be getting brittle. And you drop that, and I could easily imagine this cap just flying off of there. And they should have just done a snap and turn design, because they decided to use a threaded design. And it's very difficult to put threads in two parts and then have them be tight and aligned properly. And as you can see here, this is pretty darn tight. And I can't get it to align fully. And so you have this kind of unfortunate little bit of a sharp edge at the back of the screwdriver. But for those transgressions, the trilobular design and actually bright lights makes up for quite a bit of the other less desirable design choices. And the fact that they did at least include chrome vanadium bits, which are halfway decent. What was hilarious is it actually did come with batteries, actual performance tool power batteries. These are carbon batteries, and carbon batteries are the cheapest batteries. And these must be the cheapest of all carbon batteries, as I think all three of these batteries weigh about the same as a single alkaline. Here's a better example of how bright it really is. It's actually surprisingly useful. I mean, wow. At least they put decent lights on it. Sorry for showing you that disgusting hole under my sink. Anyway, the whole purpose and why I like lighted screwdrivers, why I'm glad this one's so bright, and the fact that they do use 3 LEDs for surround, is there's so many situations where you just can't fiddle around, or you can't quite get the light where you want it, or when you do get the light where you want it, you're always ending up blocking it or something. And so lighted screwdrivers are actually surprisingly handy, just because they show right down to where you're working. You don't have to worry about it, or like on these, if you do block it, you're only blocking this one portion of it, but you're still getting plenty of illumination. And like those, the light rings on the DeWalts and some other impact drivers and tools, is the reason they're so well reviewed is because they're shining light right next to the implement that you're working with, the shank of the screwdriver, and they're shining right exactly where you're trying to work. And so it's the best type of illumination that you can have, because it's just like having your work light or a flashlight and holding it right next to the screwdriver. And these things, once you kind of think they're cheesy, but once you have them, I mean, it's surprising how much you work on them when you're trying to work on a hose clamp and an engine bay or something like that, where you just have nice illumination for it. I mean, for real, this is just having a bit in this, trying to do something more than bright enough. If you have one of these long bits, and boom, you're like, okay, I can easily see. If I have a small Phillips bit that I'm trying to get down and I can barely see, just absolutely no issue whatsoever. And it's easy to find. Anyway, that was probably an excessively wordy review, but I kind of think this is a neat flashlight screwdriver. Just wish they would have made some build quality and design changes, but what can you expect? It's a performance tool. They're not known for their quality, but they are known for variety. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.